Most people don't realize this, but the ZZ plant, the one they lovingly water, clean, and admire in their home, might be silently blocking their wealth instead of welcoming it. You see, we've been taught to believe that just owning a so-called lucky plant is enough to change our fate. But in Feng Shui, intention alone isn't activation. And energy doesn't flow just because we want it to. It flows where it's allowed to. I once met a woman who had placed a beautiful ZZ plant by her front door. It looked perfect, lush, upright, healthy, yet her finances were stuck. Her business kept hitting invisible walls. No matter how much effort she poured in, something kept draining her progress. It wasn't until we shifted that plant slightly, just 1 meter into alignment with the energy gate, that everything began to move. Orders increased. Clients returned. Her space felt alive again. So I ask you, where is your ZZ plant right now? Is it breathing energy into your life or quietly choking it in a corner you've long forgotten? In this video, we're not just talking about plants. We're talking about how small, subtle placements can shift your entire energetic story. If you stay with me, I'll show you how to turn a common household decoration into a powerful force for wealth, harmony, and flow. Section 1. The wrong spot blocks the right flow. You might think a healthy plant will always bring good energy, especially one like the ZZ plant, praised for its resilience and symbolism of prosperity. But in Feng Shui, even the most vibrant plant can become energetically stagnant if it's placed in the wrong spot. In fact, what looks like a decorative win might be an energetic blockage waiting quietly in your home. Many people unknowingly place their ZZ plant in a place that feels convenient, but not energetically correct. Tucked under staircases to save space, beside the TV stand to balance aesthetics, or even pushed against a dim wall near the back door where it won't get in the way. It doesn't look wrong until you sense that something around you feels heavy, stuck, or just off. That moment you walk into a room and feel uninspired. That quiet pressure in the chest you can't explain. That's not your imagination. It's energy asking to be released. In Feng Shui, every plant is not just a living being. It is a living conduit of qi or life force energy. And plants like the ZZ tree, which embody the wood element, are designed to grow, expand, and channel prosperity. But for that to happen, they need light. They need breath. They need motion around them to interact with the energy of the room. When you place this plant in a dark corner, a narrow hallway, or anywhere with little airflow and no sunlight, you create a dead zone. A pocket where qi stops circulating. And when energy stagnates, abundance retreats. The ZZ plant symbolizes upward movement, financial growth, and stable accumulation. Its dark, glossy leaves resemble ancient coins, lined in perfect order, suggesting the flowing river of wealth. But rivers don't flow in stillness. They need space to run. When you place this plant in a place that's physically or energetically confined, you're symbolically choking the river. Over time, not only will the plant struggle with wilting leaves, root rot, or dull color, but your own mental clarity and sense of abundance may begin to fade. You may feel financially stalled, uncertain, or unable to move forward in projects or relationships without knowing why. That is the silent power of blocked energy. It doesn't yell. It slowly weighs you down. But the good news is, energy like water can be redirected. And just as a river can be unblocked by shifting a few stones, your home's energy can be reawakened by adjusting the placement of a single plant. Start small. Observe your ZZ plant. Is it sitting where air moves gently, where morning light can reach, where people walk by and life stirs around it? Move it near a lightly trafficked walkway, close to a window with filtered light, or near the left side of your main door inside the house, where it can both receive and transmit qi. You can even enhance its energy by placing it beside a small mirror to reflect light, or near a natural material like a wooden shelf to strengthen the wood element. You'll know the shift is working not just by how the plant grows, but by how you feel: subtle uplift, better mood, ideas flowing more easily, money no longer slipping through unnoticed cracks. A sense that the space is breathing again, and so are you. So ask yourself, is your ZZ plant growing in harmony with your home, or merely surviving in a corner it was never meant to claim? In nature, plants root where light guides them. In your home, let your placement do the same. Because when energy flows, everything follows. And sometimes the smallest move becomes the turning point between staying stuck and starting to thrive. Section 2. The conflict between fire and growth. Most people assume the ZZ plant can thrive anywhere in the home, as long as it gets some light and water. But in Feng Shui, a plant's survival is not the same as its energetic contribution. And perhaps the most surprising truth is this: placing a growth-focused plant like the ZZ tree near your kitchen, the heart of the home's fire energy, can do more harm than good. Why? Because what appears to be a harmless interior choice is, in fact, an elemental clash that quietly disturbs your home's flow and your fortune along with it. This mistake is incredibly common. Kitchens are central, well-lit, and often have corners or counters that seem perfect for greenery. A leafy ZZ plant next to a stove or beside the refrigerator can feel like the right aesthetic balance, nature softening the sharpness of appliances. But in Feng Shui, that placement invites energetic imbalance, not harmony. And the effects aren't just symbolic. They ripple into how your home feels, how your family interacts, and how your fortune unfolds. To understand why this clash matters, we need to return to the foundational wisdom of the 5 elements. The ZZ plant belongs to the wood element, symbolizing life, steady upward movement, and the deep nourishment of growth. Wood is the beginning of the energetic cycle. It brings freshness, direction, and grounding energy. But when wood is placed too close to fire, which dominates the kitchen through heat, flames, and sharp yang movement, it enters into a destructive cycle. Fire overcomes wood in the elemental cycle, burning it, depleting it, and stopping its growth. In nature, fire consumes a tree. In your home, this same principle plays out energetically. The kitchen is not a neutral space. It's an arena of high intensity. Fire, heat, fast movement, grease particles in the air, clashing metal, and constant activity. When a gentle, wealth-nurturing plant is placed in this storm of motion and heat, it doesn't feel supported. Its energy becomes restless. The roots struggle to ground. The leaves may appear healthy for a while, but internally the plant's energy field begins to lose coherence. And when a plant's energetic structure collapses, the energy it brings into your life collapses too. The consequences, though subtle, are felt deeply over time. The most immediate is financial instability. You may notice that money seems to come in but never stays, or that plans keep burning out just as they gain momentum. What should be a period of progress instead feels like a cycle of starting over. On an emotional level, the fire, wood clash can also stir up irritability and restlessness among family members. Small tensions flare up. Miscommunications rise. Rest becomes shallow. And that nourishing presence the plant was supposed to offer, it transforms into a subtle agitation, like a low hum of imbalance in the background of your daily life. You might even notice it in the plant itself. Leaves that develop brown tips, A once rich green turning dull or dusty, slow growth even though you're watering correctly. These are more than gardening problems. They're signals that your plant is absorbing conflicted energy and transmitting it into your home. But this isn't irreversible. In Feng Shui, once we become aware of an imbalance, we can always redirect the flow. The first and most direct solution is relocation. Move the ZZ plant away from the kitchen's immediate heat source. If it's near the stove, oven, or microwave, reposition it at least a few meters away, preferably in a space with calmer energy. A great spot would be along the dining area wall, near natural light, but separated by a buffer, such as a cabinet, plant screen, or sheer curtain. That visually and energetically protects it from the kitchen's fire. If relocation isn't possible due to space constraints, create an elemental barrier. A bamboo screen, a piece of natural stone, or even a soft fabric divider can subtly break the intensity of the fire energy reaching the plant. This helps restore a sense of balance and allows the plant to re-establish its connection with grounding qi. You can also introduce the earth element between the plant and the kitchen fire to act as a neutralizer. Placing the ZZ plant in a clay or ceramic pot, for instance, strengthens the earth energy, which naturally balances fire and nourishes wood. Add a layer of natural pebbles or sand at the base to further stabilize the energy. Even the act of wiping the leaves regularly with a damp cloth and placing a small bowl of salt water nearby can help absorb excess fire energy and calm the area. In Feng Shui, it's not just where we place things. It's how we care for them, how we treat them as living beings in a shared energetic relationship. This is the quiet power of elemental awareness. When you understand that your home isn't made of furniture and walls, but of relationships between energy types, every decision becomes a dialogue, and every object becomes a participant in your life's rhythm. So now I ask you to pause and reflect. Is your ZZ plant sitting too close to a space that burns it, silently exhausting its power to support you? Because just like in a forest where fire leaves behind ash and silence, an energetic fire near your prosperity plant can leave behind delayed dreams, tension in relationships, and a home that feels just slightly harder to live in. But the moment you shift its placement, protect its environment, and let its roots breathe again, something begins to move. Not just in the soil, but in your path forward. Because harmony doesn't come from having the perfect home. It comes from growing the right energy in the right place and letting it flow without resistance. Section 3. The dead zone that chokes wealth. You might think that a quiet corner is the safest place for your ZZ plant. Out of the way, no risk of being bumped, safely tucked beside a cabinet or under the staircase. But here's the paradox most people don't realize. The very spots we choose to protect our plants are often the spaces that quietly smother their energy. And in Feng Shui, those zones, dim, stagnant, and overlooked, don't just affect the plant. They become pockets where prosperity goes to sleep and sometimes never wakes back up. This mistake is more common than you think. Someone buys a ZZ plant because they've heard it attracts wealth. They love how low maintenance it is. They place it behind the couch, beside a bookshelf, or in the unused corner between two rooms. It still looks good, right? It's out of the way, but weeks pass. The plant seems fine at first, but then the leaves start drooping. The shine fades, dust settles in, and strangely enough, the owner starts feeling stuck too, financially, emotionally, or in their daily rhythm. This is the essence of what Feng Shui calls a dead zone, a space where qi, life energy, cannot move freely. These are often spots with no natural light, little human movement, poor air circulation, and energetic stillness. According to the five elements theory, the ZZ plant carries the wood element, which thrives on interaction with yang energy. Light, movement, and breath. It's a plant of growth, alignment, and vitality. When you place it in a dead zone, you sever its connection with the living rhythms of the space. Think of it like placing a river stone at the bottom of a dried-up well. No water flows through, no light reaches it, and over time, even the strongest stone wears down. In the same way, the ZZ plant begins to lose its ability to serve as an energy transmitter. Its roots absorb stagnant energy. Its leaves dull, and its symbolic function, drawing in wealth, circulating abundance, and grounding harmony, begins to fade. But this energy collapse doesn't stop at the plant. It echoes throughout the environment. You may notice financial delays, projects that stall without explanation, a foggy mind that struggles to focus, small tensions in relationships that seem to hang in the air but never fully resolve. This is the language of stuck energy, and the plant has become both a symptom and a carrier of that stuckness. In many traditional homes, these zones form naturally, corners that are closed off, rooms that get little sunlight, places where old boxes pile up and nothing truly lives or breathes. When we place something living, like the ZZ plant, into that kind of stillness, it becomes trapped in the very energy it was meant to shift. But the solution, thankfully, is gentle and deeply intuitive. Start by walking through your home and simply observing where air moves, where light touches the floor, where you yourself tend to pause, even for a moment, as you move through the day. These are signs of yang energy, life in motion. The ZZ plant doesn't need intense sunlight or heavy attention, but it does need a place where something is happening. Even subtle changes like footsteps, passing air, or shifting light patterns help the plant breathe and stay connected to the pulse of the space. If you must keep the plant in a quieter area, create a microenvironment that supports its energy. Add a small mirror to reflect light. Place a wind chime or a bell nearby to stir the qi. Introduce movement by gently rotating the plant every few days so that it receives light on all sides. Or burn a soft incense nearby once a week to invite upward energy and dissolve stagnation. These are not just rituals, they are acts of reawakening. Another approach is to pair the plant with a symbol of movement, a painting of flowing water, a small tabletop fountain, or even a bowl of polished stones to activate earth energy. Together, these elements invite balance. They remind the space and the plant that even still corners can be coaxed back into flow. And once the plant begins to recover, you'll feel it. A renewed softness in the space, a clarity in thought, a release of tension that once seemed normal. Because energy doesn't need noise, it needs nourishment. So before you walk past that dusty plant in the corner again, ask yourself, is it resting or is it withering in silence? Feng Shui isn't about where things fit visually. It's about where things breathe energetically. And your ZZ plant, as humble as it looks, might be the very messenger showing you where your wealth is stuck, not in your bank account, but in the corners of your home where life has stopped moving. Is your plant in a place of presence, or has it been hidden where your fortune can't find it? Section 4. Wealth fades where waste collects. We often think of the ZZ plant as a quiet symbol of abundance, resilient, elegant, and easy to care for. But here's what most people never realize. When you place it near waste, like the bathroom, the trash bin, or even near a laundry pile, you're not nourishing its energy. You're quietly draining it. And in the subtle language of Feng Shui, this isn't just about plant care. This is about the story your home is telling about your relationship with wealth. It's a surprisingly common scene. A small apartment or a tight kitchen layout leads someone to place their ZZ plant near the bathroom door or across from the trash area simply because there's space. Or maybe it's put on the floor near a back hallway, beside the laundry basket or cleaning supplies. After all, the plant still looks green, right? It's surviving. But surviving is not the same as thriving, and thriving is the only condition under which the ZZ plant can activate energy in your favor. In Feng Shui, the areas where waste accumulates, especially bathrooms, trash zones, and cleaning areas, are considered low vibration, heavy yin energy fields. The bathroom, in particular, is known as a drain space. It's where water and energy exits the home. It carries not only physical waste, but energetic residue of thoughts, emotions, habits, and even stress. These spaces are where qi tends to collapse inward. In contrast, the ZZ plant, which belongs to the wood element, represents life force, upward movement, financial growth, and nourishment. When you place wood in a space dominated by decay, dampness, and outflow, it becomes a contradiction. And in Feng Shui, contradiction creates tension. Tension disturbs flow, and disturbed flow means abundance cannot stay. This is not metaphorical. It plays out in both the plant and the people around it. A ZZ plant placed near waste often begins to dull without any clear reason. The leaves lose their gloss. The air around it feels stagnant. You may find it's harder to breathe deeply in that part of the home. But even more telling are the shifts that happen internally. Your financial mindset becomes foggy. You feel reactive rather than intentional. You work harder, but the results feel scattered. There's often an undercurrent of discouragement, or a feeling that I'm doing everything right, but nothing's moving. That stuckness is not just in your career or bank account. It may be sitting in the corner of your home, quietly absorbing the very energy you wish to release. Let's go deeper. In traditional Feng Shui energy mapping, waste zones, especially bathrooms, carry what's called releasing energy. This can be useful when managed well. But if a plant of prosperity sits too close to this vortex, it becomes a channel, not for wealth to enter, but for wealth to leave. Just as water flows down a drain, so does intention, focus, and spiritual clarity. And when we place a symbol of accumulation, a ZZ plant, within reach of that energy, it begins working in reverse. It no longer holds and gathers, it filters and loses. But here's the good news: energy is not fixed, it's responsive. And even a small shift can reorient everything. Start by identifying what's really surrounding your ZZ plant. Is there a trash bin within a few feet? A bathroom door that stays open? A laundry area that collects damp towels, used clothes, or plastic bottles? These may seem like minor details, but in Feng Shui, everything speaks. And waste carries the energy of what's been used up, no longer vital, no longer nourishing. That vibration clashes with any object that's meant to represent prosperity. The solution is both gentle and powerful. First, relocate your ZZ plant at least 2-3 meters away from any primary waste source. Choose a place where air feels fresher, where light touches the leaves even for part of the day, and where energy is not always flowing outward. A hallway that leads into the main living room, a quiet corner near the entryway, a spot near your desk or reading nook. It doesn't need to be dramatic, it needs to feel alive. If moving the plant isn't immediately possible, then create energetic boundaries. You can place a soft divider between the plant and the bathroom using a curtain, a bamboo screen, or even a standing bookshelf filled with meaningful items. Add a bowl of Himalayan salt or activated charcoal nearby to absorb heavy energy. Close bathroom doors regularly. Keep waste bins covered. Even these symbolic acts can make a significant difference in the way the plant and the space feels. And then tend to the plant differently. Wipe its leaves slowly and intentionally, as if wiping dust off your financial goals. Whisper an affirmation, even just, "You are safe, you are growing, you are gathering light." It may sound poetic, but plants respond to the energy we bring, just as we respond to the spaces we inhabit. In many ways, the ZZ plant becomes a mirror. When it's left in spaces that accumulate what's discarded, it reflects our own unconscious patterns of neglect, of holding onto what no longer serves, of placing wealth too close to emotional clutter. But when moved, honored, and supported, it becomes something else entirely, a quiet keeper of possibility. So take a slow breath and ask yourself, is my wealth symbol resting beside decay, or is it rooted in light? Because prosperity doesn't just arrive through action. It arrives through alignment. And sometimes it begins by moving a single plant out of the shadows of waste and back into the rhythm of life. Section 5. Not every sign matches every symbol. We often believe that anything labeled as lucky must work for everyone. But in Feng Shui, there is no one-size-fits-all symbol. And here's the subtle truth most people overlook. The same plant that attracts abundance for one person may quietly disrupt another's energy if it doesn't match their elemental nature. The ZZ plant, revered as a talisman for prosperity, is no exception. When paired with the wrong zodiac sign or personal element, its nurturing energy can become diluted, or worse, conflicting. Many viewers make this mistake without ever realizing it. They hear about the ZZ plant's reputation for wealth, buy one enthusiastically, and place it with care. Yet weeks go by and nothing shifts. Or more strangely, subtle imbalances appear. An unexpected financial slowdown, a mental fog, a strange disconnection in daily motivation. They begin to question whether Feng Shui even works. But the issue isn't with the plant, it's with the energetic compatibility between the person and the symbol. In classical Feng Shui, every person is born with a dominant elemental signature, determined by their Chinese zodiac sign and the interactions within the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. The ZZ plant is firmly rooted in the wood element, which represents growth, renewal, upward energy, and persistence. But not all elements are compatible with wood, and not all signs are meant to amplify wood energy in their environment. Let's explore the natural resonance first. Those born under the rat, tiger, or rabbit signs, often associated with wood or water elements, tend to harmonize beautifully with the ZZ plant. The rat is known for its intelligence and financial strategy. The tiger brings bold, decisive energy. The rabbit, also called the cat in some systems, symbolizes harmony, refinement, and gentle accumulation. These signs benefit most from the plant's quiet power. When placed correctly, the ZZ plant becomes a supportive companion, enhancing their intuitive flow, grounding their ambition, and helping money find its way to them with less resistance. But not everyone resonates so effortlessly. People born under the snake, horse, or goat, often influenced by fire or strong earth energy, may find the ZZ plant offers a more mixed experience. These signs tend to move quickly, react to shifting rhythms, and face cycles of rising fortune followed by sudden loss. For them, the plant may not act as a magnet, but rather as a stabilizer. If unbalanced, the ZZ plant's energy might feel too slow, too grounding, even dulling. Yet when placed with intention and supported by elemental enhancers, like citrine crystals, earth, metallic pots, or buried ancient coins, the plant can serve as a shield, not attracting new wealth rapidly, but helping retain what's already there, protecting against energetic leaks. Then there are signs that must tread more carefully. Those born under metal-heavy signs, like the monkey, rooster, or even pig, which leans toward water but often pairs with metal, may experience subtle dissonance. Why? Because metal controls wood in the elemental cycle. This means the plant's energy could feel suppressed or its benefits minimized. In some cases, instead of uplifting the space, the plant could feel energetically flat, or even trigger minor disturbances in thought, emotion, or flow. But Feng Shui is never about avoidance. It's about alignment through adjustment. If you belong to one of the signs less naturally in tune with the ZZ plant, don't discard it. Instead, honor the imbalance and recalibrate. For metal signs, use a white, silver, or glass pot to create a container that speaks your language. Add clear quartz or a small Pixiu statue near the base to act as a spiritual mediator, translating the plant's wood energy into a form that your field can accept. These adjustments allow the plant to become a tool for harmonization, not friction. The impact of mismatched energy can go beyond financial outcomes. You might feel a persistent sense of mental fatigue, an inability to finish tasks, or even unexplained sleep issues, especially if the plant is placed in an area where you rest or work. The plant hasn't failed you. It's simply reflecting the incompatibility between intention and essence. Just as a dish made with the wrong spice may look beautiful but taste off, energy that doesn't match won't nourish. So how do you truly know if your ZZ plant aligns with you? Notice how you feel near it. Do you pause beside it without realizing? Do you feel calm or slightly agitated in its presence? Has the area around it become more vibrant, or has the air turned stale? Energy speaks quietly but clearly. Listen, and then ask yourself, is this plant feeding my field, or is it sitting silently in conflict with it? Because not every symbol brings the same gift to every soul. The wisdom of Feng Shui lies in this knowing that harmony is not mass-produced. It's personalized, intimate, responsive. So let the ZZ plant be your teacher, not just your tool. Let it guide you not toward someone else's version of abundance, but toward a version that matches your elemental truth. Because when symbol and spirit align, even the quietest plant can become the strongest ally. And when they don't, the most beautiful object may become the very thing keeping your energy from fully blooming. Is your wealth plant aligned with your nature? Or has it been speaking a language your energy can't yet translate? Section 6, you placed it right. But did you time it right? You positioned your ZZ plant with care, maybe in the wealth corner of your home, near a gentle stream of light, surrounded by items that support abundance. But nothing has shifted. The plant is growing, yes, but your life still feels energetically flat. Money still flows out faster than it comes in. Opportunities feel delayed. Effort feels heavier than reward. You ask yourself, did I do something wrong? But the real question might be one most people never think to ask. Did you do it at the right time? In Feng Shui, placement is only half the equation. Timing, what the ancients called heaven's rhythm, is the other half. We often forget that energy doesn't just exist in space. It pulses through time. And just like planting seeds in winter won't yield spring flowers, placing even the most powerful object at the wrong moment can mean the energy simply doesn't take root. Many people unknowingly plant or move their ZZ tree on a whim, when they happen to be cleaning, rearranging furniture, or inspired by a YouTube video. The intention is good, but the energetic window may be closed. In Feng Shui, there are moments when qi opens like a door, receptive, flowing, alive, and there are moments when it contracts, guarded, still. To truly activate your ZZ plant's energy field, you need to move with that natural rhythm. Why does this matter? Because the ZZ plant isn't just a leafy ornament, it's an energetic antenna. It receives the vibration of your space, but also captures the signature of the moment it is planted. That moment becomes encoded in its roots, like the first breath of a newborn. If you choose a day filled with chaotic or clashing energy, the plant absorbs that signal. From the outside, it may look fine, but energetically, it's out of sync, and its power to hold or attract wealth becomes muted. The consequences often show up subtly. You may find yourself struggling to hold on to the wealth you already have. You work harder but make less. Deals fall through at the last minute. Or you experience internal unrest, trouble sleeping, a foggy mind, difficulty setting clear intentions. It's not just your outer world that's misaligned. The plant's energy field, tied to an energetically closed moment, is simply not resonating with the movement of prosperity. So how do you fix it? You don't need astrology software or advanced charts. You just need to return to the wisdom of nature and time. In traditional energy timing, certain days are especially auspicious for planting, moving, or activating Feng Shui objects. The 5th, 10th, and 15th days of the lunar month are known as energy opening days, moments when qi rises and circulation improves. The 10th lunar day, sometimes celebrated as the day of the god of wealth, is ideal for renewing financial energy. In terms of daily timing, the Mao hour, 5:07 a.m., the Si hour, 9:11 a.m., and the Yu hour, 3:05 p.m., are windows of active yang energy, light rising, nature moving, breath flowing. These are the moments when placing your ZZ plant can align it with the greater currents of prosperity. It becomes more than a gesture. It becomes a ritual of attunement. But there's more. You can also choose dates that harmonize with your own birth element. For instance, if your personal element is wood, choose a water or wood day, as water feeds wood. If you're earth, look for a metal day, since metal nourishes earth. Avoid days ruled by your conflicting element, e.g., fire for wood, water for fire, to prevent energetic resistance from building into the object's foundation. The act of planting or relocating a ZZ plant on the right day can be a powerful threshold moment, one that reshapes not only how the plant grows, but how you grow alongside it. And it doesn't need to be complicated. Before planting, you can perform a simple grounding ritual. Place rice, salt, and dried tea leaves at the bottom of the pot. These ingredients represent abundance, purification, and wisdom. As you fill the soil and adjust the position, close your eyes and silently affirm, "I plant this tree in rhythm with heaven and earth. May its roots hold prosperity. May its leaves gather light. May my space flourish in harmony." You'll feel the shift, not just in the plant's vitality, but in your clarity, your decisions, your sense of emotional stability. That's the quiet magic of acting in harmony with time. So if your plant seems healthy but your life feels blocked, maybe it's not the what or the where. Maybe it's the when. Because even the right placement loses power when planted in the wrong moment. And sometimes the missing piece isn't a new object. It's the decision to wait for the right day and act with reverence. Ask yourself this: if your plant could remember the moment it was planted, would it carry the energy of alignment or the energy of haste? Because the story of your fortune may already be rooted in that forgotten moment. And the good news? You can always rewrite it, one aligned breath, one sacred hour, one repotted shift at a time. Final This was never just about a plant. It was about the way energy takes root in our lives, quietly, invisibly, faithfully, waiting for us to notice where we've placed our attention, our intentions, and our stillness. The ZZ plant may appear simple, motionless, even ornamental, but in the language of Feng Shui, it is a living compass. One that doesn't just respond to where it stands, but when it was placed, why it was chosen, and who is caring for it. What we explored today was not a checklist of right or wrong locations. It was a journey into the deeper conversation between space and spirit. A reminder that everything we place in our environment becomes a statement, a vibration, that shapes what we invite in or quietly keep out. You may have realized somewhere along the way that the energy you've been seeking, prosperity, clarity, peace, was never truly blocked by the world outside. It was muffled in a corner you forgot to question, or trapped in a plant you placed with hope but without rhythm. So now I invite you to walk through your home not with urgency but with reverence. Let your steps soften. Let your breath lead. Observe your ZZ plant, not just its leaves, but the light that touches them, the air that surrounds them, the story they seem to carry. Ask gently, is this plant thriving or merely surviving? Is this where energy flows or where it fades? Because sometimes the shift we long for doesn't begin with a grand renovation, but with the quiet decision to move one symbol back into alignment with life. One breath, one root, one sacred moment at a time. And if you paused now, not to fix, but simply to feel, what would your home reveal about the way energy is moving within you?